Mengele. This was the guy when you got off the train at Auschwitz. You see all the guards and stuff. They've got guns. They've got barking German Shepherd dogs. They're unhappy looking. He's probably one of the first ones you're going to see because he gets to pick of the litter. He gets to pick who he wants out of all the ones coming off the train. Whether they look like they're good workers, whether they look like they're healthy or not, you catch his eye and he thinks he can use you for something, you're going with him. And the rest would be sort of into either workers or non-workers.
Yeah. He would do medical experiments. He really loved twins because you have a control subject and then you can basically just do whatever you want to with the other one just to see what happens. He would like cut off their arms, so like each one of them was left arm, and try to sew it back on the other one just to see what would happen. He would take like kidneys out and replace them with the other one's kidney just to see what would happen.
He's like Sid from Toy Story.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yes.
He's like a kid that pulled wings off of flies, grew up and has unlimited resources and test subjects at his disposal.
He would just to see what happened inject someone with bleach.
Hey Natalie, you don't even have your Chromebook.
They're Republicans.
He would remove eyes. He may dunk you in water and stick you out naked in the middle of winter to see how long frostbite and hypothermia and all of those sorts of things take to kill you.
Yeah, and that way he can say, hey, our soldiers can last this long out in freezing temperatures, and have some kind of data to go along with that. Oh my God, that's not even my class.
Look, I'm working on it.
Let's get it.
So the Nazis weren't the only ones that did these though. The Japanese had a whole unit, like Unit 730. They would use United States soldiers that were POWs, so prisoners of war, and they would perform a lot of the same experiments. They would do surgery, and the Nazis did this too. They would just open up someone's gut and root around in there to see what they could see, what they could find, no anesthesia. They would start like slowly cutting body parts off to see how many you could live without before your body went into shock and died.
Makes you want to throw up.
So it was not the best situation. But Joseph Mengele, who was called the Angel of Death, he escaped Nazi Germany. A lot of these high-ranking Nazi officials were either brought up on trial or they committed suicide. Yeah, Cody?
There's a question about that. I was wondering if there's something about, like, who were the typical victims? Was it just the German soldiers?
Well, the German soldiers weren't the victims. It was the Jews that were brought into the concentration camps. So what he did was he would use them to be able to say, okay, well, it took 4 hours for this one in this degree weather to die of hypothermia. Well, our German soldiers can last this long. So he said he was doing all of this to better understand and protect the German soldiers and airmen. Now, Mengele escaped, wound up in Argentina. So the war ends in 1945. He winds up in Argentina, changes his name, is still a doctor, and lives till the 80s. So it was like 85, 86, somewhere in there. He goes swimming one day in the Atlantic Ocean, has a heart attack, and his body washes up on shore. And that's when they discover that it's Joseph Mengele, this war criminal they've been searching for years.
You wouldn't imagine just stumbling across that guy's body.
Well, of course, he changed his appearance.
Yeah,
4 years will do a lot to you. But yeah, I mean, the fact that you go and think, oh, well, this is Dr. So-and-so that I've seen my whole life, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, no, he's Joseph Mengele. He killed really people for funsies' sake just do experiments on them.
Yeah, he was like a little small town doctor that plays voodoo. You take your kids to him if they had a, runny nose or something. And then when he died, they found out, oh, hey, I don't know, he was a monster. All right, go ahead and pull up day 3. Please make sure you resubmit these back to me. These have not been checked off yet for grades, so if you don't resubmit it, I can't give you a grade. Resubmit day 1 and day 2, and then pull up day 3. Give about 10 seconds, get day 3 up. I'm talking. Moving on. What?
Shouldn't have question 23.
No, this is question 22. This is the end of day 2. So now you need to save that, you need to close that out and submit that back to me.
You like, try to say,
You shouldn't have to save it. You just close,
automatically
you just close it down and
saves.
submit it. I'm just used to saying to save it and submit it. Once you close it down, it's saved and moved. So now go back to day 2. You guys submit that. Yeah. Pull up day 3. Pull up day 3. Unsubmit it if you need to make some changes. If you need to keep adding stuff, you've already submitted it. All right, death marches. That's when the war is almost over. Russia is closing in on one side. You have the Allied forces on the other, and they're closing in on most of the camps. They start closing the camps down and moving the prisoners. They're still not ready, just like, hey, let the prisoners go and run for it, save our own skins. They were still intent on moving the prisoners as many as they could from the concentration camps. I guess they're taking them back to Germany, yeah, to be used as labor, trying to keep the war going on. So when Germany is losing the war, they closed the concentration camps, tried to move surviving prisoners to central Germany, going to use them as labor, use them as
And the death marches were just that. By this time, Allied forces in the Soviet Union were bombing train tracks all over, occupied Germany. If you don't have a way to transport, A, the Jewish people, or B, guns, supplies, food for your soldiers, you're kind of crippled in that you can't really get anything done. So they would take these already starving, exhausted, sick Jewish concentration camp inmates on marches. And it wasn't just like, oh, we're going to walk a mile and meander through the woods and see if we can find it like a cute little squirrel. It was brutal, 50, 60 miles a day. If you slowed down, if you got behind, they shot you and left you laying there.
Yeah.
And then if they were just tired of doing this, they, take you all out in the middle of the field and then just mow everybody down.
Yeah.
So this is why I say that there's no way the German, just regular German citizen did not know what was going on.
Make sure you put that down, number 23. Again, put it in your own words if you need to, so it helps you understand it, whatever. When Germany was losing, they started closing the camps, and they just moved them interior Germany. Going on 24, this is on the liberation part of the website. What happened to half the survivors of Auschwitz? This is even after they survived, man. They're liberated. The Allied forces, the Russian forces come in and remove the guards. Free, we're going to start taking care of you. Even with medical care, about half of them still died. They were beyond the point of saving. They were starving. Again, they've been starving since they've been in the camps, basically. Starved them down. Half the survivors died of malnutrition and disease. These were guys that had been worked to death, starved to death, and anytime they were sick, it's not like there's a camp doctor you can go and well, there was, but they weren't a really priority. The prisoners weren't.
Well, and the prisoners knew that if you did happen to go to the doctor, you were never coming out of the infirmary.
Yeah. So that's all. That's the answer to 24. Half of them died, no, half of them died from malnutrition and disease. That's all you gotta put. Half of them died from malnutrition, half of the survivors, no, you're not lying. Half of the survivors died from malnutrition and disease. You got all that.
All right, 25. You should be in the survivors. How were the Jewish survivors of the Holocaust treated after World War II, especially in Poland?
Remember when the Germans started rounding these people up? These people had businesses. These people had homes. These people had belongings that they couldn't take with them on the train and take them to the camp. They left all this stuff behind.
And people just took it over.
You took over, man. You got a little corner store selling fruits and vegetables, and then you're not there for a couple of days, and you realize, oh, you're not coming back because the Germans took you off. Hey, I've always wanted to run a fruit stand. I'm going to take over this business and then start selling my own fruits and vegetables.
Or, oh, this is a really nice big house with
Yeah.
fully furnished. I think I'll live here now.
Yeah.
And they did not get this back. When the Jews came back, the people that lived there weren't like, oh, my bad, sorry, I'll be out tomorrow. It was, this is my house now. You gave it up, go somewhere else.
So the stuff they had to leave behind were gone. The houses that they had, you people were living in them. The businesses that they owned, taken over, either taken over wholesale or just replaced by something else. The stuff that they had worked for, stuff that had been in their families for generations, were gone overnight.
And the stuff they took with them to the concentration camps, they didn't get back. So it wasn't like they just had neat stacks of suitcases in a warehouse that when you left the concentration camp, you got your stuff back.
Yeah,
It didn't work that way.
Stuff or guarding their stuff for them. This word in the next sentence, a pogrom. It's not defined on here. It's defined in the website if you read it. Basically, it's just, I don't know how to say it. Basically, just people in the town would kind of do what the Nazis started. They would round up the Jews and beat them, kill them, run them out of town. Like, hey, you know, we liked it better when you guys were gone. Go back. The largest anti-Jewish pogrom took place in 1946 after the war ended in southeastern Poland. 150 Jews came back to the city. They survived all this stuff. They survived the camps. They survived the being with the Nazis. Survived that. They come back home, and then everybody freaked out. They're like, man, these guys came back. I bet there's a whole bunch more coming. And they just killed them and chased them out of town and didn't let them return. They didn't want these people coming back and taking back their houses and businesses and stuff, so they ran them out. People are awesome. Number 26, what country was created in 1948 and why? Boy, this is still going. You still hear about this in the news? The UN, the United Nations, voted to divide the country of Palestine into a Jewish and Arab state. Now, I'm not sure how much say-so Palestine had on this. 1948, the British began withdrawing from Palestine. Then one of the lead voices of the Jewish Alliance, David Ben-Gurion, announced the formation of the State of Israel. After this, Jewish refugee ships freely into the seaports of the new nation. So they basically said, hey, the Jews are without a country. They've been decimated in Europe. We're going to give them their own country by taking Palestine and dividing it in half.
And this is something that's actually still fought over today. Google the Gaza Strip sometime.
Anytime you hear about fighting in Israel, Israel shooting missiles into Palestine, it comes back from this. Nobody's really happy about it. Israel thinks Palestinians should just go ahead and leave and let them have the whole place. Palestinians think they shouldn't be there at all, and they're taking their land, and it's a really complex issue. All right, again, after the war, Nuremberg trials. What were the Nuremberg trials? What was the point behind them? Well, payback, right? That's the point of a trial. to get justice. Right after the war, the top surviving German leaders were tried for Nazi crimes, including the crime of the Holocaust. It was held in Nuremberg, Germany. Defendants generally acknowledge that the crimes that they're accused of occurred. Yeah, we did this. We killed all these people, but somebody else told me to do it.
Well, that's what they all said. Well, I was just doing what I was
I
told.
was following orders.
The lead prosecutor for, of course, all of the Nazi leaders would have been the defendants. So the lead prosecutor in the Nuremberg trials was Jewish. I wish I could remember his name because I watched a documentary on him. I feel like on Netflix,
Yeah.
and it was really good. Like he's won it. I can't remember. I feel like he's won like a Nobel Peace Prize, and he's written books, and he's still a lawyer. He's like 101 or something, and he's still a lawyer who practices in Florida. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
can't.
when I saw there was some guy that worked like a steel mill or something in Pennsylvania. And
Yes.
They he was like a Nazi guard, like they found his old pictures and stuff. And
Yes.
they
And
the same one.
yeah, Mossad, which is a military unit out of Israel, out of the Israeli military, which if you live in Israel, if you are a citizen of the country of Israel, mandatory you serve at least 2 years in the Israeli army. You get no option in that. But, yeah, that was like Mossad. They were called the Mossad, and they were tracking down Nazi war criminals. Like at this point, though, it's kind of getting ridiculous. Most of them that really had anything to do with it are dead. I mean, it's 80. Do the math for me. 45 to now. That's why I'm an English teacher, not a math teacher. It's been a day or two. But now, like, they've arrested a 90-year-old woman in her nursing home in Germany because she was a secretary for a commandant at one of the camps. So at what point do you say, they're going to be dead soon anyway? Is it really worth the cost of transporting them and trying them and all of that?
That was 75 years ago.
There you go. So 75 years ago.
All right, we talked about this a little bit with Mengele. Did Nazis escape justice? If so, where did they flee to? Yeah, a lot more escaped than were tried. A lot of Germans fled because they were abroad, including hundreds who came to the United States. Yeah, the United States was trying to go to space at the time. We wanted to beat Russia to space. So a lot of these Nazi scientists, they were pretty good at rockets. They were pretty good at figuring out how to make rockets work. They were far ahead of us when it came to that stuff. So we brought them over, gave them immunity, gave them new lives, and put them into the space programs. A lot of Nazi scientists were behind the first successful NASA flights to space. So we're done. Brazil and Argentina, though, were favored ports. They had their little former Nazi communities down there. That's great.
That's all she wrote.
All right, is that the last slide on that one?
Yes.
Is there a day 4? We gotta shoot a day 4. Man, I don't even know what day 4 is about. What's day 4? I think it's up to the top, right next to it on the right. Nope, the right. Nope, the right.
There we go. Oh, the rescue and resistance. Okay.
I get these mixed up. I think these are more like reflection questions. Reflection questions about rescue and resistance. Did many people help the Jews escape or hide during World War II? No, not really. For one, if you got your family, you got your farm that you're taking care of, and you're watching the kids there, and then the Jewish family down the road comes looking for a hiding place. You may really like them, but are you going to risk your family getting taken away by Nazis? They could stop us knocking on your door and take you away. No, so a lot of people did. Those who did were motivated by opposition to Nazi racism, by compassion, or by religious or moral principle. In rare instances, entire communities as well as individuals helped take Jews They did so at risk in many places, providing sheltering Jews was punishable by death. If they found you harboring Jews, they would kill you, they'd kill your family, it would not be a good time whatsoever. Make sure you put something down. Really, the answer just comes out, no, not a lot. Not a lot of people help the Jews escape. It was a huge risk. All right, let's see the next slide. Rescue in Denmark. What was unique about Nazi deportations of Jews in Denmark compared to other countries? None of this at all has anything to do with the voting. I don't even think this covered anything from the movement. Yeah. Yeah, this thing I don't.
The book we're reading, though, talks about, it takes place in Copenhagen in Denmark.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. Okay, so what was that? Day 3, right? Yeah, close it down. It's a copy, yeah. So.
Okay, so what was unique about Nazi deportation of Jews in Denmark when compared to other countries? So Denmark was a country that the Nazis occupied. However, really the King Leopold, I think it was, whoever keeps getting text messages, how about we put it on silent or just don't get text messages, turn it off. He would not allow that to happen. So the Danish people, they organized a nationwide effort to smuggle the Jews by sea to Sweden. So there's just like a little spit of sea there, probably 20 miles wide, that they organized. All of these fishermen would take the Jewish Danes and would smuggle them in their ships across this land to Sweden. So 31. How many of Denmark's 8,000 Jews were able to escape? 7,200. So the majority of them were able to escape using this method. Now the Nazi guards eventually caught on. Like 8,000 people is a whole lot of people to just suddenly disappear. So they did catch on, and we'll talk about that as we read the novel that we're going to read.
Going back more towards the beginning of everything, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. In April 1943, troops and police entered the ghetto. Remember, the ghettos were walled off parts of the city. They put up fencing and barbed wire to keep people in and out. They would bring in supplies of food and stuff, but they were kind of on their own. So troops and police entered the ghetto. They were going to start deporting its surviving inhabitants, going to start pulling on the trains and taking them to the camps. 750 fighters fought the heavily armed and military Germans. The ghetto fighters were able to hold out for nearly a month, but in May the revolt ended. Again, it was a siege. They didn't have food. They didn't have supplies coming in. The Germans slowly crushed the resistance. More than 56,000 Jews captured. 7,000 were shot, and the rest were sent on to the camps. That's it. So you can't ever say that they didn't try fighting back. People didn't try fighting back. Every year, every time we teach this, there's always somebody that says, "Well, if I was in the camp, I would have fought back. I would have, once they started doing this, I would have fought back." They tried. They did try.
All right, 33. Why do you think there were so few successful uprisings in the camp? I mean, really, all of these are good answers. Lack of strength from malnourishment. If you're starving to death, you're probably not going to be able to fight very long. Lack of supplies. You really can't beat somebody. You can't really get into a fight with somebody with your fists when they have a gun. Fear for family members and other inmates. There were inmates that did try to escape, and when they did, they had to stand there and watch their family members killed. That was their punishment for trying to escape, was they'd watch their family members killed. Now, you did have inmates who would commit suicide. They would run headlong into these fences. The fences around the camps were all electrified. So what were the jobs of the Sonderkommando? It was their job to burn the corpses. And it was like we talked about with the capos yesterday, who were like the special ones, and they got special privileges. The Sonderkommando were the same. They were given some authority and special consideration for doing the work. So instead of no food or very little food, they may get the scraps of what the guards were eating, which could be a lot.
Yeah, it's a sucky job. You're cleaning out the gas chambers. It's your neighbors, it's your family members. But the alternative is
to be one of them
yourself. Yeah, because somebody else is going to take that job. It comes up.
So really, in that situation, you're kind of danged if you do and danged if you don't. So.
Resistance inside Germany. Who was the target of a serial? Okay, so there was an assassination attempt against Hitler. Small group of high-ranking military officers. They're like, this isn't going well. He's leading us a path. We're kind of going astray here. We had a reason to be fighting at the beginning, but he's more focused on just killing Jews now, and that's not really going to do what we want to do. There's a movie. I don't even know what it's called.
Valkyrie. It's got Tom Cruise in it.
Tom Cruise, 6'3" Tom Cruise.
Yeah, no, he's like my height.
He was an aide. They put a briefcase right beside Hitler when this meeting started, but the table was apparently like really, really heavy and thick. So the bomb flew off, and Hitler was barely wounded. And then they pretty much caught everybody who was even slightly involved in this plot and killed them. The White Rose Organization. These are like young people. They're like high school and college students. They distributed anti-Nazi leaflets and put fans slogans like freedom over posters and walls. In February, they were caught distributing leaflets and arrested and executed. If you read this section of the website, it goes into much more detail than just the questions, obviously, here. But yeah, the last thing they said is they were being hung or firing squad. I think they were hung. Long live freedom. So there were people inside Germany who were against this and tried to stop it. It just wasn't a lot. It wasn't enough.
And they weren't just hung. It wasn't like they were taken into a private alleyway and hung. They were hung in the city square and were left there to rot.
Yep.
Just, hey, guess you don't want to do this, because if you do, this is where you'll end up. That's it.
That's it.
That's all she wrote.
I'm going to post these right now. I'm going to post these on our classroom. So if you missed any, if you didn't get them, come on, dude. You're not. Do what? What? That is no good. That is no good if you have a computer that's not turned on and plugged in. And there's no place to plug it in except back there. And you need to go to the library and just get a new computer. Yeah. I can't hear you, man. What?
If you need me to, I'll do that.
I need you to take I don't care. This is your work. You know what's going on in here.
I don't have to do it.
I don't have to either. You're fine. Sit right down and go back to sleep. Didn't mean to wake you up. Give me half a second. I'm going to post the. Oh, come on, man.